Welcome to Behind the SME, the podcast where we dive into the stories of founders, leaders, and visionaries of small and medium-sized enterprises. As the CEO of a small business myself, I want to uncover what drives the success of SMEs by talking to those who are in the trenches, building their businesses from the ground up. I hope you enjoy the episode. Steve, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Good to have you on. So for those that don't know you, why don't we start by getting a bit of background on who you are and what you're doing at the moment?
Yeah. So, I've been with MTC now for 3 years. My main role there is I look after the portfolio and sector lead for everything to do with startups and SMEs. So we define an SME anything up to 100 million of turnover. So anything less than that. Sweet spot really within SMEs is businesses between about sort of 3 million turnover to about 10 is where the majority sort of sit. And obviously, I'm responsible for the sort of program portfolio for all the commercial activity, partnerships, supply chain related stuff, and also a lot of funding programs that we get involved in across the UK as well. So, so it's quite a wide and varied role.
Brilliant, yeah. And for those that don't know who the MTC are, give us an understanding.
Yeah, so Manufacturing Technology Centre. So we are one of 6 manufacturing catapults in the UK. We're all part of the same group, the High Value Manufacturing Catapult group. So you've got National Manufacturing Institute of Scotland up in Glasgow. You've got Advanced Manufacturing Research Centre, AMRC, up in Sheffield. National Composite Centre down in Bristol. CPI, which predominantly focuses on the science and chemicals of engineering and manufacturing. And then you've got Warwick Manufacturing Group in Coventry, which are our neighbours, just down the road from us. And then obviously MTC. But we all kind of work closely together and have done so quite closely now for a couple of years, deliberately trying to help one another with capability and capacity management. So I sit on the Cross Catapult board. We meet on a regular basis, and there's times where we do joint projects and joint programs together and things like that. So
yeah. And was, correct me if I'm wrong, Catapult was ideated by government. It was an initiative by them to make R&D more effective within the commercial environment. Is that right?
Yeah, in essence. I mean, all of the catapults, without any exception, are all sort of founded in academia.
Yeah.
And so, Warwick is obviously attached to Warwick, and AMRC in Sheffield is attached to Sheffield, and so on. And we're all part sponsored by government. So we get funding every year. And really the mantra is that we are independent, we are agnostic, we are not-for-profit distribution business. And as a consequence of that, it means that we're here to bridge that gap between everything great that goes on in academia from a research and development perspective. So we often refer to that as kind of TRL 1, 2 and 3, technology readiness levels 1, 2 and 3. So there's a lot of lab-related activity that goes on within academia, a lot of thought leadership, a lot of white papers, a heck of a lot of research and theses and so on. And so in order to take out from academia the best parts of modern applications and technology, then there's a massive gap, or there was a massive gap, between academia and industry. And so we often say academia is TRL 1, 2 and 3. MTC and the other catapults focus on 3, 4, 5, 6. And then industry is 7, 8, 9.
Yeah.
So my role in particular is kind of looking backwards at academia to see what's the next best thing that's coming out of thought leadership world and laboratory world. Validate it in a real world manufacturing environment, because that's what we do at MTC. And then obviously embed that, take it out into industry and help businesses adapt and adopt, advanced manufacturing applications and technology type things. So that's how it works, really.
Yeah, and I guess we have a bad reputation in the UK, don't we, of having really strong academic institutions, but a lack of technology-focused unicorns. So clearly not great at converting, the amazing work and thoughts that's going on into commercial activity. You compare us to, I don't know, the Bay Area. It's a very big gap, isn't there? And MTC's designed, and its purpose is to help bridge that gap and de-risk some of the R&D activities, converting and build the bridges between academia and industry.
Yeah, spot on. I mean, I think we've got no Silicon Valley equivalent, yeah, and so
Not yet.
Not yet, but that doesn't mean to say. I would say that the UK is quite an innovative and creative country. Really, we'll get on to looking at the state of UK manufacturing, no doubt, in a bit. But we're actually quite creative, and there's a lot of startups, spin-outs from university, phenomenal progress, particularly around green tech, clean tech, and med tech. We are world leading when it comes to those sorts of things. I think the issue is that helping then those businesses develop the ideation and the concept design and build of what it is that they've come up with, and then help them through the scale up into manufacturing.
Yeah.
Obviously, it needs a lot of support, a lot of funding, sometimes angel investors or venture capitalists to come in to help businesses grow. And it's that bit as well that we're perhaps getting better at, but like my school report, could do better. Yeah.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. And so the MTC is there to guide across all of those categories that you've spoken about, actually getting stuck into some of the R&D projects. And I was saying off air that I've been to the MTC site, and I think you're saying 60,000 square foot of just equipment, isn't it?
Yeah.
And expertise.
Yeah.
So you can go there as an SME with a project in a phase of development and say, look, I need to get it there. How can you support and create a program together to try and move that piece of technology forward?
Exactly that. I mean, there are stories after stories of particularly startups where obviously they want to get their product to market as quickly as possible. Yeah, and so we call it minimum viable product in order to start earning revenue. But people that turn up thinking that, you have an idea and a concept. I mean, I've even had someone turn up with a Tupperware-box to say, can you develop this modem for me in a Tupperware-box, yeah? And we did. Over a period of time, we were able to convert it, and it's now being used in Antarctica and places like that. So it was a rugged modem. In fact, they could do with that on the trains. But anyway, that's another story for another day. I was just thinking about that. But that pathway is often a roller coaster ride, an emotional and financial roller coaster ride, because you can't go from ideation and concept design overnight to then sell a minimum viable product, generation 1.0 product or whatever it is. It takes time. And so it's helping those businesses through that emotional roller coaster ride, financial roller coaster ride, of getting them ready for what we call TRL development, which we talked about, but also MRL, which is manufacturing readiness levels.
Right, okay.
So there's a world of a difference between startups who understand their technology, I mean, some very intelligent and bright people, but the need to get a team around them then who are commercially focused, product focused, operationally focused, manufacturing or supply chain focused. And you can't necessarily do it on your own, really. So some people I find are very technically gifted in a particular area, but just lack the ladder of getting from a scale up into selling of the product. You just can't do it on your own, really. There are too many failed businesses that have tried. So.
I studied economics for my undergraduate, and so I liken this to the fact that there is an inefficiency in the overall picture, right, that the government's stepping in to solve. And part funding, they're not 100% funding these projects, are they? They're saying there's a subsidised bit of support here, which, if successful, has much wider positive implications for employment and for competitiveness of the UK, etc. So I think the accusation that the UK is bad at it. A lot of people don't know about the MTC in my experience and the Catapult centres generally, but there is a very sizable framework. It's quite a well-funded framework from my understanding to support. So yeah, I think really useful just to spend 5 minutes just talking about what you do. And I think there's another one called the Advanced Propulsion Center. Is that part of Catapult?
Yeah, there are 6 that are focused on manufacturing.
Okay.
And even here, in London, there's Digital Catapult just down the road in Euston. So they have some involvement in manufacturing. The whole idea really is to help businesses in all sectors be competitive on the international stage, be efficient and productive, but most importantly to help them with not just the research, but also the D part, which often gets forgotten about. This is about development, it's about progress, it's about next gen product and capability. It's about embedding modern applications and modern methods of manufacturing and modern technology to help the UK become more competitive and more profitable, not just within the UK, but on the global stage. Really.
Yeah.
That's the whole point.
Well, let's talk about that. Our history is strong, but today, the past is behind us. Where are we nowadays in terms of our productivity?
Yeah. So this is my view. If we were sat here recording this 6 months ago, I'd be saying to you that the UK is the 8th largest country in the world for manufacturing output.
Okay.
Today, we're currently number 12. We've just been overtaken. We tend to oscillate with the French between 8th or 9th. We were 9th for a long while, and then we got to 8th, and then all of a sudden we've gone up to 12th, and the French have overtaken us. But we've recently been overtaken by the Russians because of the military situation, the Taiwanese because the semiconductor market has now come back to the fore, and also the Mexicans have overtaken us recently off the back of a China trade deal type thing. So we're now 12th in the world. It's worth 230 odd billion to the UK economy. The industry employs just under 3 million people. But the key is that when you look at the global index of robots per 10,000 capita, so there's a global index, and it's looked after by the International Federation of Robotics, the IFR. So it's all available online for people to Google and so on. The UK is currently, when I last looked, 24th in the world for robot adoption. So we were 8th in the world for manufacturing output, then 12th, now 12th, but we're still languishing at 24th in the world for robotic adoption. And so we are sort of, the difference between the two, the manufacturing output that we produce and the robots per capita, is the productivity gap. And that's the bit that we're focused on heavily within MTC and other sister catapults, is how do we make UK manufacturing more efficient, more productive, more profitable as a consequence? And it is through the adoption of modern automation techniques that will help businesses. And we'll no doubt get onto some case studies and stories of businesses that have benefited from just letting go a bit. It's like the song, isn't it? Let it go, let it go. And, just actually trust the fact that if a lot of businesses are struggling at the moment with labour shortages, because there is a lack of labour, available people. So if you've got a production line with 6 people, post-Brexit, you've probably now only got 4 people or 3 people on that production line, and so your productivity has diminished. So one way to improve that productivity is by replacing the labour shortage, because there are gaps, with robotics and automation capability. And we work with we engage with around 850 SMEs every year. And it's surprising the number of businesses that once they've been shown where to start, how to start, baby steps, take one step at a time, bring in some of these applications to help them, then the light bulbs go on, and then all of a sudden they've been trained, they've been skilled up, they understand now how robotics can operate with almost alongside humans, because it's collaboration. in order to improve productivity and efficiency and throughput, and obviously impacting not just the revenue numbers, but also the profitability of businesses as well. So, yeah.
When you talk about robotics to an SME leader that perhaps has been a bit shy from their investment over the prior X number of years, what's normally the first objection they have? Do they turn around and say, Steve, I can't afford that?
Partly. I think in the main, there is a kind of general, I'm not sure if apathy is the right word. I don't mean it in a negative way, but you only know what you know.
Right.
And so the average age of owner-managed businesses within SMEs are, 50 and above. We've all started to get our grey hairs and all the rest of it type thing. And so if you're still adopting 1980s, 1990s sort of process flow of manufacturing production, and you don't understand modern applications like 3D printing, like laser surface texturing and so on, you only know what you know. And so I think the biggest thing is just around helping them to be able to implement some of these applications and technologies without disruption of BAU.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's the finances, sometimes it's access to capital or whatever, but I think, again, that's just an education piece around getting access to finance. There are lots of different ways to do that. Access to funding doesn't have to be finance. But I think in the main, it's often we don't know where to start, we don't know how to start, and most importantly, because they've got so many competing priorities, firefighting on a daily basis.
Yeah.
The hope of being able to kind of just stop for a bit and think and implement potential robots into that manufacturing environment is just so low on the list because of the risk and the disruption to BAU, really. And so there are ways of overcoming that. We can mitigate some of those issues, but it's just giving them the confidence. And I think that there's too many times when you've got, because we're also a apprenticeship centre at the MTC, so we train 750 apprentices go through the school curriculum over a 3-year period at any one time.
Wow.
When they go back into the workplace, what we're finding is that they themselves have become very frustrated with the businesses that they're working in, because it's almost like a sort of a glass ceiling is put in the way, where they're going back to explain 3D printing, laser surface texturing,
Right.
robotics, automation, blah, blah, blah. And obviously the senior management within the SME or the owner, because he doesn't quite understand it, and he's listening to someone that's been taught modern applications, you've got this kind of gap of, the owner being uncomfortable and the young apprentice being taught these modern methods of manufacturing, and sometimes they're not being heard, they're not being listened to, they're not able to get the message across type thing. And so that's always a bit of a conundrum. And so one of the things that we're doing at the minute to overcome that is, podcasts like this, is education, support, help for owner-managed businesses to go on a pathway of actually adopting more automation and robotics as a way of becoming far more efficient in the way that they run their business type thing.
Yeah. It's I think I use the word apathy. I think it's an apt word. I think nervousness about, like I said, what they don't know is really common. We've got a lot of clients in my main business that obviously works with a lot of innovative firms where it might be a family-run business.
Yeah.
The son or daughter has been working in the company for now 10, 15 years. Mum and dad are retiring, and I've seen new blood, new vision. Suddenly they've got their hands on the steering wheel and they're going, these are the things that I've always wanted to do. Maybe competing in some markets that have got a few of the old guard still running their firms, and you see just the growth that they're able to achieve. And obviously they've got a longer risk. They've got a different attitude to risk because they've got a longer term view on things.
Yeah.
So they're going, I don't mind taking out a 15-year lease or a loan or a piece of finance because I'm going to be able to see that through. They can look at it and go, I reckon that's actually self-funding because I'm saving on that person who's about to retire and I won't replace them and the like. But I've seen that really hands-on. Can you give us a story that you can flesh out in a bit more detail for maybe someone that's done a bit of a U-turn and really changed their view on investment?
Yeah, I mean, I won't name any names, but I mean, I've got plenty of stories and stuff. I mean, there's one particular business in my mind at the moment where it's not so much older people or the older generation. It was actually old kit and equipment.
Yeah.
They were using 4 or 5 CNC lathe type machines, and they'd obviously it's a kind of mentality of mend and make do. And so one of these machines was 70 years old. There was another in there for about 60 years old type thing. And I did make a flippant remark when I was there, just to say you'd probably make more money selling tickets to come in and have a look at these machines than you do, with the production of your manufacturing output at the moment. But that's because the machines were that old. They should have been in the National History Museum, really. Yeah. And, on one particular occasion, we even had to decommission a particular machine that just presented a massive health and safety issue there on the spot. That was... So... so you come across those, and obviously I think sometimes there are owner-managed businesses where I can think of another one up in Chesterfield where they've actually got a section of the warehouse where they've kind of decommissioned the old kit and equipment, but they physically use it as a showcase of people being able to kind of walk around and see some of the stuff. Very but cool. It's that type of business where they've moved on. They've now got robots in play, they've got automation in play, they've got far better health and safety. The production is quadrupled as a consequence. So they haven't quite got rid of the old stuff, but they've salvaged it for posterity. Yeah. But at least they're not using it now. They've realised that there are better ways of working type thing. Yeah. So there's lots of those. And but you must see it as well. I mean, you obviously from a research and development perspective, there are some businesses that are still kind of stuck in their ways. Yeah. Sometimes they don't know how to get out of that because you only know what you know. Yeah. But you must see it as well, where you've got businesses perhaps who all of a sudden there's a change of leadership or change of culture or a change of direction perhaps where they're forced into...
Yeah, but I mean, we see everything, right? We've probably got 600-700 clients. We see everything from the 30-year-old that's worked for a more traditional firm for 10 years and then is set up by himself and has gone out and bought a modern piece of kit. And take something like printing, they were doing it using block and now they're using digital printing on fabric, and they're going, I can produce this at much more accurate rate and still at scale. All the way through to a company that's more established trying to kind of change their ways and people still trying to compete with their old equipment. So we see a bit of everything. I'm always fascinated by what industries are still doing well in the UK and what have been completely trounced by the Chinese or people just producing in a low-cost environment. And it seems to be the products that don't travel particularly well, obviously. Those that, quite expensive because they take up quite a lot of space on containers, but actually the product cost is quite low. Is that your take as well?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, if we think about China, I mean, obviously, I didn't realise this until quite recently, but UK actually export around about 50% of everything that we produce.
That much, is it? Wow.
But obviously, that means we're importing 50% as well. And so, really, over the past kind of 10 years, the Chinese have dominated with low-cost, what we call componentry. Subcomponents of a bigger product. So they're very good from a business case perspective of being able to provide low cost componentry. But through modern applications and modern technology, and also to some extent fueled by disruption to long supply chains. What we mean by long supply chains is subcomponentry coming in from offshore markets, and disruption in the Red Sea and things like that. There's an issue. There's always been an issue over quality of those components and the materials that they're using, because they are high carbon emitting, and of course, the Chinese are not as concerned about net zero perhaps as we are. And at the same time, businesses that used to outsource from China sometimes are tying up working capital for 6 months, 9 months, 12 months before they get the stuff arrived, if it arrives at all. If there's no pirates in the sea on the way. So, but because of modern application like 3D printing, at the MTC at the moment we've got the world's fastest 3D printer on show. It's an Australian business. Where you can print component elements within 10-15 minutes. And so the business case for outsourcing from China over the past 10 years has quietly been diluted. If you take away the 9 months of cash flow issues, you take away the quality issues, you take away the disruption for long supply chains, and you start looking at modern applications that can print components within a reasonable time, onshore, so UK businesses adopting 3D printing and additive manufacturing applications and so on, the business case all of a sudden of outsourcing componentry from China has almost not, I wouldn't say completely diminished, but is now not so much of a slam dunk, if I can use that expression, because actually the business case is now more tipping towards businesses pivoting to onshoring and nearshoring. And so one of the things that we've been working on a lot in the last number of years is the creation of almost a yellow pages. Remember the old yellow pages? Supply chain directory is what we now call it. And so we've got a list, a live database of every single UK supplier of every single component in this directory that businesses can access. So if we've got an SME perhaps who's listening to this, and they've been outsourcing component parts from China and they're getting annoyed with long supply chains or cash flow or quality or whatever it is, then actually there's probably on their doorstep somewhere in the UK, if not Europe, where they would be far better off moving to a nearshore or onshore sourcing. And through the directory they can actually, and we can help them, source new supply chain of component parts type thing.
And can they register parts that they're making in case they want to get it out there?
Absolutely, yeah. So it's almost like a yellow pages. It's a directory. So there's lots of businesses we work with who are what we call subcontracting manufacturers. So they take on board, they're a tier 2 supplier or a tier 3 supplier or tier 4 or whatever, but they are providing subcontracting componentry into bigger organizations, and also then helping other SMEs in and around the areas that they're operating in, type thing.
I also think that even though the tariff situation is still playing itself out, what it has done is expose huge vulnerabilities in having a reliance upon an international supply chain. And okay, we haven't got President Trump looking after our tariffs, but we buy and sell or trade with the US a lot. But equally, if that's happened overseas and it's had profound impact on some of the world's most valuable companies, I'm thinking Apple and Microsoft and Tesla and those guys that do need a lot of components coming from overseas, I would be scared as a UK manufacturer, and I'd be thinking, well, I'm going to at least have a backup plan, or I'm going to be looking closer to home because I don't want a single point of failure. And do you think that gives a rise to entrepreneurs in the manufacturing space going, I want to try and service some of that demand?
Yeah, I think so. The mantra at the moment is don't panic. Because of the roller coaster ride of tariffs and trade deals that's kind of going on. The important thing is not to panic for SMEs. But the other thing is the US is not the only country in the world. And so you don't if you're a heavy exporter to US, then obviously you're going through a bit of a ragged time at the moment. But there are lots of things and lots of other country markets where you can provide your product. And also at the same time, it means that because the business case and modern methods of manufacturing are such, you've now got UK businesses who've predominantly been labelled, probably harshly in my mind, as kind of too expensive. But they're now using modern methods, and therefore, as a consequence, the cost of actually procuring your componentry from local SMEs, and even if you're an SME yourself, then the ability to provide componentry to other businesses in the UK has got to be high on your list. There's no doubt about that. And even if it's to the EU market, it's a massive market for the UK. And so for me, I don't see the need for panic. I see the need for optimism and a strategic piece of work around diversifying, and it's the old equivalent of saying, don't rely upon one single contract to grow your business, because the likelihood is you're going to lose that contract at some stage. So it's the same with country markets. Don't rely upon one country market as your sole market, because if something goes wrong in that market, then you're going to suffer the consequences. So it's about diversifying deliberately and strategically into places where you know that if you're a fabricator or an injection molder or whatever it is that you're providing, even if you're providing that into, say, the automotive market right now, the ability to diversify and pivot into new sectors, not just new country markets, but new sectors. So if I'm an automotive SME right now, there's a huge amount of SMEs who are realizing that you can provide fabrication and injection molding into pharmaceutical, into defense, into aerospace. So you don't have to be reliant upon a single country market for your exports, and you don't have to be reliant upon a single sector for your componentry. And so a lot of the work we're doing is helping businesses with onshoring, offshoring, sourcing, supply chain, but also then pivoting into new sectors. And I see it as a huge opportunity, really. And the businesses we're working with have kind of woken up to the fact that there is additional demand on their doorsteps. And therefore they're capitalising upon that opportunity, really.
We're recording this on a day when they've released more information about the defence spending plans, and they were talking about 2.5% being the target, and there's a summit apparently coming up where lots of countries are going to be committing to 3.5%. And they're talking about legislation actually that keeps the manufacturing in the UK, so the skills in the UK, and the reliance is in the UK, so we don't have that strange scenario where we're at war with a country that we buy semiconductors from, which is obviously extreme, but worth avoiding.
Well, absolutely, but true. It's true. So.
Totally true. And I go back to the point about opportunity. There's opportunity there, and we are seeing deglobalization. Let's be honest, it is happening, and I think the kind of the various cracks that we are seeing appear do make you look closer to home, and should make you look closer to home.
Well, government have clearly come out to say, I don't want to get into a political sort of debate really, but government have come out to say that they obviously want to meet their 2.5% of GDP being spent on defence. What we do know is, politics aside, is 5.1 billion has gone into the MOD recently to help with upping the defence-related activity that's going on within the UK. And, to be quite frank, I think it's a long time overdue, really. But nevertheless, money is being put into making sure that we protect the UK. Now, that for me also means then opportunity for SMEs. The MOD have just opened up a new SME portal that encourages procurement of SMEs in the defence space. So they're open for business. And if you hear their narrative and their rhetoric, they're actually acknowledging that they've made it difficult in the past for SMEs to work with the MOD. Whereas now, with the new deputy director in play, They've made it very clear that the portal is open. SMEs are able to be procured by the MOD to help with this huge investment that's gone into the scaling up of defence activity within the UK. Really,
Just how would someone find that if they were looking for it?
I'd have to find the actual website, but it's the MOD SME Hub is what it's called.
Fine. We can
And
find
if
a link and
people
put it in
if
there.
people Google it, then they'll soon find it. If they can't find it, then come back to me and I can point them in the right direction.
There was another thing that we've spoken about, which is the Lloyd's export portal.
Yes.
Yeah, tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, so we're fortunate, MTC are fortunate to have a really strong relationship with Lloyds Bank. They are sponsors of the MTC training, building, and they also provide their levy to help SMEs with their apprenticeship funding and things like that, which is a contribution to salary costs and things. And I'm sure other banks have also got similar portals, because we work with NatWest and we work with Barclays. But the Lloyd's export portal, I think, is a really, really nifty tool. They've spent a lot of money on helping businesses be able to find alternative country markets to the markets that they're currently exporting to. So
Right.
if I'm an SME in Colchester exporting to the US, let's say I'm a fabricator, then you can actually, through the portal, find every other country in the world that also will take that fabrication capability.
Wow.
And within the portal, it's all free. You don't have to be a Lloyd's customer or anything. Within the portal, it also helps you with events that are going on in the region, activities that are happening in the region, businesses that are looking for fabricators. So it's a real connecting platform, really, and it's definitely worth having a look, because I think it's probably one of the best that I've come across, really.
Yeah, I think what I'm taking from this conversation, lots of things, but one is that there's actually quite a lot out there for small businesses. I mean, I think about a company that I recently visited on the South Coast. Really cool business. I spent a couple of days on site with them, and throughout the 2 days, we discovered 4 bits of government funding that they were missing out on, that they were perfectly eligible for, that they should be claiming for, to the tune of a few £100,000 probably. And they employ, I think, about 75 people roughly. So, a few £100,000 worth of funding is significant. And I asked him, I said, well, why do you think this hasn't been discovered? Is it a lack of marketing? Is it a lack of knowledge? And he said, we just focus on our clients and our business, and we just don't spend the time looking at what's available for us, because the landscape's complicated and it changes on a weekly or monthly basis.
So I think it's a shame, really, because there is a lot of funding. There's a lot of grant funding, taxpayer money. Roughly around 4.5 billion is put by the government into UK manufacturing every year.
Yeah.
And it's a very confusing landscape. I'm going to do a podcast specifically on grant funding, loan funding, and equity funding, because they all have their nuances.
Yeah.
But it's a very confusing landscape, and people don't realise that there are, acts in play, legal acts like Companies Act and things like that around what's called subsidy control and state aid. So SMEs up to 36 million in turnover can actually get up to 315,000 of state aid over a rolling 3-year period. So it's full taxpayer money available to them for a whole raft of different purposes and so on.
Wow.
And so you're absolutely right when you say there's a lot of support out there. The problem is finding it sometimes.
Yeah.
And I think my criticism, and I include MTC in this and all the other brother and sister catapults and government agencies, Innovate UK, Make UK, Department of Business and Trade. What we've got to do is get better at joining our dots, because we can often end up working separately, in isolation, in a vertical world, thinking that we're the only ones that exist. Whereas actually we've got to have a better ecosystem of signposting and connecting. It's one of the reasons that when I restructured the MTC business last year, we specifically set up a partnerships program. in order to connect the dots, because we can't do everything. We're not all things to all men. But whether it's R&D tax relief, obviously we've now partnered with you guys, whether it's IP, whether it's design and build of new products that we can't do, whether it's legal requirements that are needed, whether it's grant funding, loan funding, equity funding, angel investors. So we've now started to create this massive ecosystem of connected partners. And I think that's the bit that, apart from the SMEs need to step up and do their bit, I think actually, us as agencies and businesses to help support have got to be far more connected.
Yeah.
And so that's my aspiration around the next couple of years, is how to connect up better in order to allow easier access for SMEs to get some of the support that they need, really.
Yeah. And what's interesting is that the economics make sense. The government do regular assessments, don't they, on their return on investment, the multiplier effect of government spending in certain areas, and R&D is often up at the top of it, isn't it?
Yeah,
because they see it and they say, well, better productivity, better competitiveness, better output means more jobs, more tax revenues. It just flows on and downstream from R&D, so they do prioritize it.
Yeah. And I think with what we're trying to do is impact businesses, and so one of the things that we have developed is this framework called SOFTS, 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 and it stands for how we impact businesses strategically. So which markets are they going to export to? Which markets are they going to import from? We impact them operationally. So that's to make them more efficient, more productive. We impact them financially. So how do we improve revenues? How do we improve profitability and margins? We impact them technologically, because it's about sticking in new kit and equipment and modern applications and so on. And we also impact them sustainably. How do they benefit from lower carbon emitting materials, switching perhaps from steel to titanium or copper blend, or even sometimes polymer, strengthened polymer, recycle, repair, reuse, in order to have an impact on sustainability. So this SOFTS framework is now starting to gather momentum, really, and we're seeing, we're now being called and being challenged around how are you impacting SMEs. And I think it's absolutely the right call to make, because we have to be able to clearly articulate when we go in and help a business, what have we done? What's the impact or benefit that they've had as a consequence of our intervention with them, type thing. So again, a bit like my school report, as I said earlier, could do better, but it's definitely going in the right direction.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Do you ever have companies come to you and say, look, we don't know what we don't know? Do you know what I mean? We've been in this industry for 20 plus years. Margins are good, companies doing all right. We always have our own struggles here, there and everywhere, and dealing with various curveballs. But we don't know what the next chapter looks like.
Yeah.
Talk to us.
Yeah, I mean, we do. I think, we do a lot of what we call site visits. We do a lot of line walks where we go out and have a look around, and we put on our MTC lens, and we talk to the owners, and we talk to the operatives on the factory floor and stuff like that. And, there's a lot of businesses out there who are doing a lot of really good things. Okay, and we shouldn't underestimate that. Because they've trialed, they've experimented, they've learnt new things, they've sent people away to upskill and understand what the landscape is looking like these days. And so there's a lot of really good things. They network well. They tend to go to events that they're invited to. They do a lot of research. And so some of them come to us where they've done their homework, and it's really pleasing to see, where perhaps they might just need that final sort of step in helping them gain access to some funding or whatever it is, type thing. But then there are a lot of businesses who are kind of ostrich, put their heads in the sand, don't know what's going on around them, don't know what they don't know.
Yeah.
And sometimes actually not even open to a conversation. So the word I often use, the way that I deal with customers in particular, SMEs, is what I call a critical friend. Okay, so first of all, we're friends. We're a not-for-profit business. We're here to be independent and agnostic to any vendor in order to make sure that they are advised and helped and supported in a trustworthy environment. Yeah, and so AI, for example, okay, if we take that, it's where do you start with AI in a manufacturing production process? Who do you go to? Because there's loads of vendors out there, and so businesses are perhaps, as a critical friend, is to say, look, we're here first of all as a friend, but why are you making that in such a way? Why on earth are you using a 70-year-old CNC lathe to make that particular product? And so it's here as a critical friend, really. We're here to challenge them a little bit, prod, poke, ask them awkward questions. I don't want to say teach them, because that sounds, a bit disingenuous, really. But actually just open their eyes to some of the things that they could be doing. Yeah. So when we're walking around and we see certain things and we say, well, have you thought about that? Have you thought about that? AI can definitely help you there. Yeah. Putting in a vision system to help with quality control, so cameras, finding the right camera for the environment and stuff like that. So it's those sorts of things, really, is just trying to push a little bit and prod and poke as a critical friend, really.
It reminds me of an idea that I once heard, which was get a small group of people, maybe 5 to 10, depending on the size of your business, from across the business, young, experienced, the whole kind of spectrum, get them to meet 3 times a year, call them the cannibalization crew. And the idea is that they spend a couple of hours in the room with a whiteboard trying to work out what could kill their business. It's really simple. What's coming around the corner, what are we missing, what are we not looking at? And the thinking is Blockbuster would have seen Netflix coming, BlackBerry would have seen Apple coming. Right. It's something so basic that would have saved a large number of businesses. I thought it was quite interesting.
Cannibalization crew, yeah. So maybe we should have a think about that.
What could eat your business up?
Yeah. Cannibalization crew.
Good. Well, we've covered so much ground. We'd always like to close up by asking our guests what their best or worst piece of advice they've ever received is.
Yeah. And you sort of prompted me earlier on this, and I was really struggling to begin with. But then when I was just thinking, in my office, I've got a man cave of an office. Yeah, it's down the road in my garden.
Right.
So there's no commute. And it's almost like a sort of, how do I describe it? Like a Swedish log cabin, yeah? And inside is my desk and my computer and my rugby pictures and my golf trophies and my Xbox and my TV and all that sort of stuff. It's a proper man cave, yeah? And on the wall, as you walk in, is this picture of a golf... it's a golf-related thing. So obviously I'm a golfer, so I love all that sort of stuff. And it's a picture of a par 3 over water onto a very small green. And it's on one of the famous courses for the non-golfers. I won't bore them. But underneath it says, focus on the things that matter. And so I'm the opposite to that, really, because although it says focus, because you've got to be in the moment when you're playing golf, particularly for that particular shot, sometimes I can be accused of being a bit too scattergun. Too many things going on at once, not enough bandwidth to complete everything. Whereas sometimes it's actually best to just focus in the moment on a particular thing, and instead of trying to cut corners and do too many things, is just focus on one thing for a period of time. And so I've started reading my own poster as I've been going in and out of my office, and realising that for me, that advice that was probably, I think that picture was given to me by, he's dead now unfortunately, but a friend about 20 years ago, and I've passed it nearly every day and never really sat down and thought it through or applied it. And so I'd say that it's probably only in the last couple of months where I've been in a position, particularly at work where there's a lot going on, just to learn to focus a little bit more and actually complete tasks, almost as a completer finisher, get things done, don't cut corners, and make sure that what you do is thorough and proper type thing. And so that would be the only thing I think that I would kind of say.
I think a really great message to end on. Steve, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much, sir. Enjoyed it. Very good.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Behind the SME. Don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review. It really helps others find the show. If you want to get in touch, you can find our email in the description. Until then, keep building, keep learning, and we'll see you next time.